This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 244 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to Kathryn Burnett all about how to be a productive writer. But first, to the comments on Cindy D's Tropes episode. Yanni Jade said, loved this episode. I had to rewind and grab my notebook. Matt Goodall said, what an outstanding episode. I really do hope you have Cindy back on again when she has her show on air and or when she publishes more Tropes books. Such valuable information. Erica Lott said that was awesome. I recently purchased the 3 Tropeaholics guides based on a recommendation shared during Becca's topicals on tropes, so this is timely. And we had a few other comments as well. So thank you so much to everybody who listened and commented. So in terms of personal news and updates, I'm feeling like I'm very much in a different space. So for patrons, you will get to hear the Black Heron episode on the 1st of the month, so shortly after this releases, and you will get to hear more kind of about that. And for listeners not on the Patreon, you'll get to hear it in a month's time. But basically, I just feel like I am moving into a much better space. Like I really wasn't okay for a little while. I really thought I was in burnout. I wasn't. It was a magnesium deficiency. And I'm feeling considerably better now, but also I'm just in a healthier space. The coaching and therapy and everything is helping to give me more boundaries, to give me those pieces of me back that I think I'd probably given away. And so, yeah, I'm just feeling really good at the moment. The one thing I need to get back is going to the gym. And because I'm right at the tail end of a book, I'm probably not going to be doing that until next week, because all I can think about, tunnel vision, hello, is getting to the end of this current book. So once I do that, I think the cycle will be complete and I will be back on top form again next week. What else can I tell you? I can't remember if I had my tattoo last time I recorded, possibly not, but I have now had my bookish tattoo and I'm absolutely in love. It's definitely not going to be the last one that I get. I think I'm going to fill my thigh, much probably to my mum's dismay, but there we go. I am right in the last, I want to say 20k of the book. This book has taken longer than normal to write. I don't know how long I've been writing it, maybe a month now. So quite a bit longer than normal. I would have finished a week ago and I think it's going to take me another week. So that is a little bit frustrating, but I think because of the magnesium issues I had and the exhaustion as a consequence of that and just the shifts that I've been going through, it has taken a bit longer. And I'm trying to be a bit kind to myself about it, you know, as long as I can hit the other deadline before New Zealand, then it's fine. I am disappointed because I wanted to run the second Kickstarter in July, and that's not going to happen now. I'm going to have to push that back until after New Zealand, but you know, I can still do it and it's fine. I just have to change the schedules and delay things, and that isn't the end of the world. I mean, who the fuck am I? Who am I to be saying it's not the end of the world? Like, do you guys even know me anymore? Do you even recognise me? Because I sure as shit don't. Like, who is this person that is okay with a minor delay on a timeline? Fuck me. But anyway, clearly it's a much better headspace to be in. And yeah, so words. Now, I am going to make a promise. The annual lessons learned episode is either going to be next week or the week after. It really depends how long it takes me to get this draft written. I am prioritising the book, and then as soon as the book is written, I will finish drafting the annual lessons learned episode. So I don't know what I'm going to say at the end of this episode. It will next week's episode's going to be a surprise. It's either going to be me or it will be me the following week giving you my annual lessons learned, which you guys know is my absolute favourite episode. Okay, I think that's probably all I can tell you. I know I'm on the countdown now to New Zealand and I'm getting ridiculously excited. Everything's signed off and I'm really actually looking forward to the trip. I'm looking forward to the break. I'm looking forward to the creative pennies I'm going to get from being in that amazing environment. I tell you what I'm not looking forward to, a really fucking long flight. So if anyone has any like aeroplane travel tips, I would love to hear them, because this will be the first time. Like, I've done a London to LA type flight, so I've done like 12 hours. I've done London to Nepal. So I have been on a plane for a really long time, but I haven't done one of those followed by another one almost immediately. So yeah, I would love to know if you guys have any tricks up your sleeves. The Rebel of the Week this week is Chris. Chris says, I've been in corporate hell. After 10 years of it, I was hospitalised for shingles because of the stress. In a Zoom meeting one day, what we were discussing was not on strategy, and that was always the worst part of my job, trying to realign seniors who undoubtedly would get defensive and blame my brief for being off strategy. In this particular meeting, I was greeted by not just the lead, but 6 other members, all straight white men, by the way. I was giving my comments, and the lead sent me a Slack berating me, and all the other men did was simply glare into the camera, arms crossed, not saying a word. So I continued trudging on, and basically anything I did didn't matter. Once I was done speaking, the creative lead proceeded to verbally lay waste to me on the call, while the other people simply glared on. Needless to say, the purpose of this call was to intimidate and silence me. After the call, he sent me another Slack message telling me I was a horrible strategist, sent me screenshots of private Slack messages between him and his team members about me. Spoiler alert, they didn't like me. Then he wrote, I don't want to come for your job, but, oh my God. Immediately, I felt like I was about to have another shingles outbreak. And then I thought, fuck this. I had more than a year's savings at that point. A lesson from my youth, always save so you can have fuck you money. Well, I had the money. Now it was time to say fuck you. My boss quitting, citing the creative team and his lead, and my boss offered me everything to stay. There wasn't enough money in the world to get me to go back to that, so I simply told her what my last day would be. Then I sent the Slacks and all the DM screenshots from this arsehole creative lead to HR and lodged a formal complaint. I took 2 months off, and then I went freelance, where I have mostly more control over my schedule and the people I work with. You still get some clunkers though. Also, I finally had the energy to launch the first book of what would become the Hidden Gotham series, which is a crime fiction series set in the queer clubs and speakeasies of 1920s New York City. It's been so fulfilling, and I'm proud to say that I am much happier than I have ever been. Here is to the life-changing power of saying fuck this. This rebellion so much. One of my goals is literally to have fuck you money. I think there's so much power in having enough money in the bank that you can just say fuck you to whatever or whoever you need to in order to go and find yourself the joy that you want and need and live the life that you want and need. So that is incredible. Thank you so much to Chris. If you would like to be a Rebel of the Week, please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, or something in between. You can email your Rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. Now, I have been given the warning by Becca. Please, if you have a rebellion, please do send it in. I don't say this little quip every week as a joke. I really do mean it. Like, we are always teetering on the brink of not having enough. So please do send in those stories. No new patrons this week, but a huge thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes, as well as bonus content, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. From me this week, let's get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Kathryn Burnett. Kathryn is an award-winning screenwriter and playwright with many television and stage credits to her name, including The Broken Wood Mysteries, Under the Vines, and My Life is Murder. She's also a writing coach who recently wrote the Productive Writer Guidebook for any writer who wants to get out of their own way. Last year, she was published in the horror anthology Remains to be Told. Currently on the boil, the premiere of her first one-woman show, Nicola Cheeseman in the Back, opens mid-June 2024 in New Zealand, and she's co-writing a non-fiction comedy book about dickheads for Upstart Press. That is spectacular. Please elaborate on the dickheads.
Look, it's a friend of mine, writing buddy of mine, whose name is Nick Ward, we were basically approached by Upstart and they went, would you like to do this. We want a man and a woman to write it together. We don't just want to get a guy to do it. So what do you say? And we went, sure. And then just started writing it and have had the best time. We've really gone, okay, we sat down. I mean, because he's not in Auckland, so we went down to where he lives and we basically spent some time working out all the chapters we wanted to do. And my favorite to date has been Dickheads in the Apocalypse, which I've just written. So I'm
So
really, it's looking forward to it. It's just fun. And like, honestly, we've just been so indulgent. We've been totally ridiculous and indulgent and have just written a non-fiction fiction type book, but it's funny.
what's your definition of dickhead?
Well, it's really tricky because there's so many different types. But generally, it's somebody that's unpleasant and oblivious to how unpleasant they are, and they're very good at time wasting and are unconcerned by how they affect others around them, is my broad definition.
Excellent. So
And yeah.
is the concept like different hilarious situations where dickheads piss you off? Oh my God, this sounds
Exactly right.
amazing.
And it's also, well, it's how to spot them. So, yeah, basically, we've got a chapter on the supermarket, we've got a
Yeah.
chapter on the apocalypse, we've got a chapter on space, which I also love. And we've got, any in history, in art, in fashion, all of that.
Well, that sounds extremely fun.
It is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. And we've made all sorts of really quite indulgent jokes at our own expense throughout, which has been a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, I would like to know when that comes out because that sounds like the kind of hilarious, like, no, well, not novel, but you know what I mean, book that I would
Yeah.
like to read.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, the way this works is I always ask the same question as we open, which is to ask you to tell everyone a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you get to where you are in your writing career today? Like, what was your journey?
Okay, it was a very circuitous journey, which I'm very happy to talk about. It really was. I always wanted to be a writer as a child. Oh, I was writing as a kid, like really young, loved it, wanted to do it, didn't really think that that was a thing you could do for a job. And so it took a very long time to get to the point where I went, oh, I think I can make a living doing that. And how I made a living doing that was by working in television, which is not super easy to get into. But anyway, bumbled my way into that. And then basically worked as a gun for hire on a lot of shows. And that's kind of how I got in. So it was I mean, I'd been to university. I kind of had always had that, oh, well, I really want to write this, that, a play, a novel, la la la, and just didn't really fully commit to it. So it took me a while, to be honest. And I think my TV career kind of started when I was in my early 30s, no, about 30, late 20s maybe. And I just kind of bounced from project to project to project. So it was very unplanned. It wasn't particularly strategic, to my chagrin. There's a chunk of years that I refer to as my lost years where I just go, I don't know what happened in those years. It was really bouncing around. It just wasn't a beautiful, streamlined plan. And I think, and the part of the reason that I wrote my productive writer book is because no one really sits you down when you want to be a writer and goes, hey, this is going to be challenging. Here's why. There's that beloved narrative of people that don't write, or, that love the idea of writing but never do, that you're either born with this extraordinary talent and inspiration is going to strike you, and that's that, and wonderful things will just happen because you're talented. And I think that is not true. And, it's that. And I think I really wanted to talk about how many mistakes I made, how I had to really wrangle my mindset to get to a point where I could kind of bear to be a writer, actually.
Do you think that anybody who reaches, not, I was going to say the point, but a point of success in an industry experiences a similar thing? So maybe it's, I don't know, like James Smith is a really infamous PT instructor. I've always wanted to be a PT instructor, or I don't know, I've always wanted to be a computer programmer, for these people who are working in the program industry. Do you think this is something restricted to like creatives hearing that, or do you think it's just like a symptom of humanity that so many of us look at others' success and just short circuit the amount of time and effort and energy it's taken to get there?
I absolutely think it's just a symptom of being a human. I really do. And I think it's swap out writer for any word you might wish to, or any, sort of career or calling that you might wish to include. And I think there's just I think it's, okay, I could just talk about this for so long. There's this very weird thing where people will often go, and the thing is, I've been this person as well, where you'll go, that person's done really well at something I want to do.
Mm.
It's really easy for them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It just happened like this, and you make up this little narrative about how they got to where they are, and it's really untrue. And what we really don't know. And I mean, now that have had some success, you get that from other people, which is so disconcerting because they really have no idea. They haven't seen the, bazillion years of madness and stupid decision making and mistakes. They haven't seen that. They haven't seen all of the time spent on fruitless projects. They haven't seen all of the things that anyone who has a creative career goes through. They haven't seen the doubt. They haven't seen the fear. They haven't seen the dark nights of the soul at all. So it's kind of weird. I think it's a really human thing. And what I like to say to people that I work with is if you are finding yourself, bent out of shape by someone else's success, like look inward and really look at what that means. And usually it's a pretty good indicator of what you want.
That's
And it's
interesting.
pretty good.
I feel like, with anything that like any dream that we have to decide which pain poison we're willing to drink.
Yes.
Because like it doesn't
Yes.
matter what the goal is, there is going to be some level of difficulty, complexity, challenge, pain,
Mm,
whatever descriptive word you want to use. Like it isn't going
mm.
to be a walk in the park unless you've got infinite cash and can just buy yourself the dream, right?
Yeah,
If
they're
you're
absolutely
doing this,
right.
if you're doing it the lowly way that most mere mortals have to do it,
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
you have to decide whether or not you're willing to drink the pain in order to
Mm,
get to the goal. Like,
that's
yeah,
right. And sometimes the pain it's not horrendously sharp. It's pain by a thousand paper cuts.
yes.
Like it's the
Oh my
sacrifice.
God.
It's the sacrifice of, I mean, I just know so many creative people here, and I'm sure it's exactly the same in the UK, and in fact, everywhere, where a lot of creative people have been totally passionate and committed to their craft and suddenly get to an age and go, ah, I don't seem to have a house. I don't seem to have a retirement plan, all of that stuff. And, I think a lot of people hit that point and go, wow, you really kind of do, I think, there's an option to sacrifice stuff, and it's up to you about how much you want to sacrifice it. Like I just doubled down at some point, I just went, that's it, that's what I really want to do. And then as I also doubled down in a really sensible way because I made sure that I had other things that I could do to generate income. But I honestly do think, I think it's really interesting that question you asked about is it non-creative people? It absolutely is. I think, I mean, you talk to any really successful business person or, clothes designer, anything, athlete, there is sacrifice and pain along the way. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think far too many people are looking for shortcuts, and
Oh,
you just
yeah.
can't. There is no
Nope.
shortcut to that. There
There's
is
no
no
hack.
shortcut to
There's no
success.
shortcut.
There is none.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
trust me, we've all looked. There is no fucking shortcut. Because if there was, somebody would have monetized it, the government
that's
would have
right.
taxed it,
Yep.
and it would be an industry. But there is no
Yeah.
shortcut, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we are going to talk about productivity. So let us
Okay.
start with like, what are your bugbears? What really pisses you off? What do the dickheads say about productivity? Or like, yeah.
I think the thing that I don't know if it's a real bugbear, but I find it really annoying when people have their concept of productivity in the writing space or the creative space is kind of a toxic productivity. It's like well, if you want it enough, you will just do X, Y, and Z. And who cares if your eyeballs are bleeding? Like it just doesn't matter. And I go, I find that annoying. I don't find it particularly realistic. And again, it's like this beloved narrative of people who don't have to do it. And I think um, I get equally annoyed just on a personal level when people that um, will tell me how to be more productive in my writing career. And I go, I know my skin is really good, but I've been doing this a while. I'm not like really young. So maybe don't try and tell me that. But I think that's the kind of negative end of it. I think the the annoying end of it from particularly newer writers tends to be they are looking for the hack and they don't I don't know, and this is obviously not, this is a very broad generalization. It's not all new writers at all, but they seem to think that it's just finding the magic key and that will unlock the thing. So I quite often will get asked, and I'm sure you've been asked as well, so what is your daily process? Like, what do you
Oh.
do? And you just go, okay, well, I just live my life normally and then try and do whatever I try and do. But there just seems to be this real resistance to understanding that this takes time. There are no hacks. It's a marathon. And I honestly really, really wish, honestly, Shasha, I wish someone had said this to me when I was a younger writer. I wish they had just said, calm your farm. This is going to take a while. Just calm down and just work on your craft and get into it. Just stop being impatient. Because I think I wasted a lot of time, a lot of dicking around. I'm really hoping the word dick isn't going to come up a lot in this podcast, but I think it might. But it is that, and you dick around getting all sort of bent out of shape because things aren't moving fast enough for you. And this idea that somehow if you just work harder and do hours that are going to bend you out of shape is just it's weird. Or there's like, oh, well, I just don't think I really have to do that because I've watched 50 billion masterclasses and this is what these famous writers said. And I think the big thing for me is that is annoying is people that go, I'm going to watch a whole lot of really famous, very successful writers talk about what they do. And I am going to just take that and go plop into my life and then I'm going to be really successful. And that's just not how it works. So I find that annoying. That's the shortcut they've found for themselves. And when I sort of quite often will talk to people about whether we're a good match for coaching. And quite often I will go, yeah, you're freaking me out because you're talking a lot about the famous people you've watched talking about writing. And you think that's going to make you more productive. It kind of isn't.
Have you ever heard of Clifton Strengths?
Have I already had a what, sorry?
Have you heard of Clifton Strengths?
I have not.
So what you're talking about, I definitely suffered under trying to make other people's processes work for me. And that changed when I did my Clifton Strengths. Everybody listening will be like, take a drink, because I always mention it, probably as much as dickheads are going to be mentioned this episode. But
let's just say it heaps of times.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make it our thing. And one of the things that I discovered is that my number one strength is competition, which is quite rare for writers because a lot of writers have a lot of thinking strengths and need that kind of time and space. But I went from trying to write alone to always writing in a sprint room, like online, where I can see somebody else's word count. And if I can see somebody else's word count, you can be assured I am not going to get left behind because I'm so competitive. So now I went from like 1,700 words a day as my average to writing about 2,000 words an hour. And
Wow.
Yeah. But it was just because it was that automatic light switch of, okay, let's make this a game. Let's gamify writing. And because that's how I work, I mean, that is not how 90% of writers will work, but that is how I work. And so that's what I do. I gamify writing. But anyway, I completely agree with what you're saying. And I think so many of us come into this industry. And I think especially for indie writers, there is a lot of very loud voices. And we hear, oh, well, that's how this person's doing it. And I want success like them. Therefore, I must have to do it their way. Well, no, actually, because your brain isn't necessarily wired the same way. Do you think writers make any other mistakes when it comes to productivity, like when they come to trying to be more productive? What are the like classic mistakes that you see people coming to you with for coaching?
I think not turning up, like just not turning up, like as in I don't mean literally turning up, I mean internally turning up. Yeah, like they dart around, and I've done this. That's how I can speak to it. Like they dart around the commitment. And I kind of, so I think, and I'm very sympathetic to that because I've been that person. So I think perhaps it's a bit mean to call it a mistake, but it's just part of their process. They just haven't got there yet. But a mistake I really do see people making is that their goal, like their writing goal, so they have their writing dream, but their writing goal is huge. And they don't, so
Yeah.
the dream and the goal, their skill set, they don't have the skill set for it yet. And they will get sometimes quite annoyed when you go, okay, let's just get really real about what you can do. Because it's like, it's all very well, like it sounds really awesome to go, yeah, I'm going to write this amazing sort of fantasy trilogy, and I'm going to do that in a year. I'm going to go, you are not, you actually are not. And here's why. It's because
Brutal episode today, folks.
but
I love it.
that's a mistake. It's a mistake as choosing a goal that's wrong for where you're at. And it's like, how can you know? It's not even, I'm not going, oh my God, finger wagging a mistake. It's like some people never have had anyone say to them, hey, have you thought about your writing goal and going, what's possible for you and what is, where your skill set's at? Is that the right goal? It might be that your dream is to write the trilogy, the fantasy trilogy. That might be your dream and you want it to be on the bestseller list and all that. Fucking have at it. That is a great dream. Dreams are awesome. They're the North Star, right? They're going, that's the thing that makes me keep doing it. But your goal has to be tangible and achievable. And I kind of think the mistake a lot of people, newer writers, not more experienced writers, will make is that they just choose a goal that they are going to fail. And I think that's so depressing. I mean, it really is like going, great, I'm going to choose Everest as my goal, but I can barely walk up, a gentle slope in my neighborhood. It's that. And the other mistake I think people make, and this really does get in the way of their productivity a lot, and I hear this a lot actually, is that they're comparing themselves to people who are much further up the mountain than them.
Oh, yes.
Really common.
Yes.
And it makes me just so sad. And I just want to go stop doing that. You haven't been writing for 20 years. You've been writing for two. So why do you expect yourself? They're so hard on themselves, right? Why do you expect yourself to be as amazing as someone that has been doing this for decades? Why?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like sometimes people are very receptive to that and they go, that's a really good point. And this is absolutely not about uh, lower your sights, choose something easy. No writing is easy. I wrote a short story for that anthology that we talked about. I did not find that easy, and I'm an experienced writer. It's not about that. It's about going realistically, where am I at? What is the goal? And the goal is going to move you towards the dream, or it should be aligned with the dream. But it's understanding and being really honest with yourself and going, well, great, you can, if you go to a workshop, get the skills, get the craft, absolutely. Do that. Then start, make mistakes, fail. Start with things that you can actually literally do in your life because everyone has got different lives full of different obligations. So I'm always really leery and suspicious of people that go, here's the one way to do it. And you just need to dream big, kid, and go crazy. I'm going, I just don't believe that because I think it takes a really long time to get really good at what you want to do. And
Yeah.
I am also going, I'm still improving. I'm still getting better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will continue to improve until the day I
Yeah,
die.
same.
Like
Day I
walk off
die.
this mortal coil. Exactly.
That's right. That's
It,
right.
I love what you said, and it's very, very what was it? I recognize it very deeply because so I have a strengths coach, and one of the
Mm.
things we worked on, and I laughed when you said Everest because that's all I ever used to have was Mount Everest goals. Now, my particular set of strengths lean more towards needing that and needing a goal that seems so insurmountable that I can prove everybody wrong. Like that is
Mm.
what motivates me.
Yeah, yeah.
But we also need to refuel the tank on the way, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's fine having that, but if you have those intermediary goals,
Mm-mm.
then I, as a competitive person, get to win multiple
Mm.
times on the way
That's
up the
right.
mountain.
That's right.
That's the bit that I was missing. And I think the other thing that I wanted to say is that when we have those giant dreams and we are not wired like somebody like me who can just like, burn through the pain of not winning,
Mm.
for months and years and
Mm.
decades or whatever. If you're not wired like that, then and you don't have those goals, those smaller milestone goals, you can burn out from not meeting your own
Mm,
expectations, because dreams
mm,
like that create expectations in your head. And then when
yes.
you don't meet them, you can get tired real quick.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's very disappointing. It's really depressing. Like if you've started off and you go, great, I've got this huge goal, and you start off and you just start wobbling and faltering along the way. It's horrible, and people get really quite. I think they can become really damaged by it. I think they can become completely disenchanted and full of self-loathing because they
yeah,
go, oh, I didn't do that thing,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then and if someone has not said to them, well, gee, you kind of knew. This is a really, really big thing. And you and I both know writing any kind of significant amount of work is a marathon.
Yeah, I always think back to university, and how hard I used to find it to write a 2 to 3,000 word essay. And I laugh so hard now because I'll do that in an hour.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh my God, like the vast majority of humanity will struggle to write a 2,000 word essay.
Mm.
And, and then people come in and go, oh yeah, I'm going to write an 80,000 word novel. Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I mean, and this thing is, it's great to have that goal and that dream, right? It's just get everything, put your knapsack together.
yeah.
What do you need to do that thing? If you want to write that thing and it's big, what do you need in your backpack? And that's a bunch of stuff, actually. And I think a lot of people just don't make that connection. They just go, no, it's going to happen because I think I've got the talent, and they think it's about talent, and it's actually not.
So that's a good segue, because
Yes.
I think a lot of the time when we come to looking at productivity, we have to
Mm,
start by
mm.
looking at where we're at and doing some
Yes.
kind of assessment. So like
Yes.
talk to me about how you coach people through assessing like where they are. What should they do? What should they not do? How do they approach it?
I basically would say to folks, like, what do you want? Like, really help them drill into what they actually really properly want. Because sometimes people say, I want this thing. And then you go, if you ask a few more questions and you kind of go, I don't know that is what you want. And then I do a bit more work, and they finally get to the point where I want this, I want to achieve that. And I go, great. So, sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. Where were we? What
I'm
was that
talking,
question? That was like,
so when
how am I
they,
talking them through?
yeah, well,
Mm,
when they start to approach productivity,
yes.
how do they do an assessment to work out where they are? How do
Yeah.
you even work out where to start? How do you know what you're bringing to this goal
Yeah.
and this
Okay.
dream?
Yes. So I basically go, what have you done in the past? So where are you at? Where do you think you're at in terms of craftability? What are you working on at the minute? What's the frustration? And frustration is often, I can't get to that place that I want to get to, or I can't finish. And then I will go, right, okay, let's look at your life, and let's look at, is that the right goal for you right now? Like I always look at that really quite early on, and then go, let's look at your life and go, right, realistically, let's break down, let's talk about that 80,000 word novel that you referred to earlier. It's like, let's look at that and go, right, looking at your life, let's break that down into how many words you would have to do, let's say every week. Let's say, does writing for half a day every week suit your lifestyle and your other obligations? So I would talk to them about that. And I would say to them, where are the things in your life that you can cut? What are the things that are not serving your writing goal that you can cut? And they have to be really honest about that. And invariably, everybody has something. But I think that's the practical aspects of it. I think there's also the what in your head, writer, is a productive writer. Like, what's your expectation of what that means? And sometimes it's so wackadoodle, you just go, okay, and I will literally say, okay, that just sounds quite mad because you've got children and a full-time job. So um,
I
you're putting too much pressure on yourself.
I also think that some of that question about what is a productive writer
Mm,
changes depending on what industry you're in. So, like for
absolutely right.
traditionally published authors, a book a
Mm,
year is the standard. If you're doing
yes.
more than that, you're an extremely productive writer. But if you look
Mm,
at, say, apart from maybe the last year, so prior to the last year, and you look at the indie sphere, then everybody was
mm,
rapid releasing. So,
mm.
a book a month became that's what a productive writer is.
Wow.
And it's been like that for several years. And so I think I came into this industry thinking that that is what a productive writer is. And why do we think that? Well, we think that because the loudest voices in the industry are usually those who are making 6 and 7 figures a year, and they're doing that on, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 books a year that they're
Mm,
publishing.
mm,
But
mm,
that's not the case for me. I make
mm,
big
mm,
money on. So I started a new pen name last year. I've got 4 books in that and doing 6 figures on 4 books.
mm,
So I don't
mm,
need to publish
mm,
that many books a year. But and I was literally having this conversation this week, which I think it's why it's so relevant. But I was like, no, I need to publish like 6 books this year. And I don't need to. I don't need to. It's enough.
mm,
It's enough
mm,
to publish
mm,
3 or 4
mm.
books a year, which is still 3 or 4 times faster than trad, and make
Yeah.
good money. And so
Mm,
for me, I'm trying to tell myself it's enough, you're enough, this is enough books. And you don't have to, do any more. This is a productive writer, and over the long term, that, in 10 years, that's still going to be like 40 books on top
mm.
of the books that I've already written. So
Yes.
um
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
yeah, so it's changing the mindset of,
Mm,
you know, yeah, it's exactly. And actually, it would be 60 books in 10 years' time if that was the
yeah.
case. And that's wonderful. I'd be very happy with that amount of books.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah,
I
we do
think
have to, measure that reality.
so. It is getting real with the reality because I mean, how if you are constantly defining what productive looks like to you through the lens of what other people are doing,
Right.
that's a mistake, I think. I mean, I feel like I'm quite a productive writer. I, have my times of being not particularly, productive because I've got other stuff going on. But I try to go, if I'm just moving forward, then I'm being productive, and I think that's something a lot of people, they get so caught up in the kind of the glamour and the sort of the golden stardust of people that are really successful. And they go, that's what a productive writer looks like. And I go, yeah, that's what a productive writer looks like for them. What does it look like for you? I mean, look at our lives. Good grief. I mean, most people that want to write have got 50 billion other things going on. And I'm going, if you are moving your project forward and you finish it and you get to where you want to go, you're doing pretty well. I think this comparison to what other folks are doing is a real problem. And I think it causes a lot of stress. And I think it causes a lot of stress because we're not all the same and we don't all have the same lives and we don't all have the same freedoms,
Yeah.
actually. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
that
or privilege, yeah, exactly, or privileges in,
mm,
for our abilities for
for
what,
sure.
exactly. Yeah. Um, okay. What are some of the forms of procrastination that you experience or that you see in your coachees? I don't know if that's the right word. I think there's some that are perhaps more obvious and some that are more insidious. So like, yeah, what kind of procrastination do you see?
This is me like cracking my knuckles because I love talking about this. So endless fiddling and editing is a biggie. It's the thing that looks and feels a lot like writing because you're editing, which is writing, but you never finish. And so you can just keep doing that forever. And it's kind of a form of perfectionism. So you are going, I just can't show this to anyone, or I can't enter the competition, or I can't send it to the publisher, or I can't finish it because then I'll have to put it in front of someone and it's not ready. And the endless fiddling. The endless fiddling goes on and on and on. And I actually worked with someone a couple of years ago, has subsequently been published, all great, amazing. And when she came to me, she was saying, and I honestly had to break her of this habit. It was, it was terrible. But I mean, I could see exactly what's happening. And she went, I can't finish my novel. And I went, right. And she had rewritten the first 20 chapters 50 billion times, and particularly the first 5 to 10. And I went, okay, stop. And I was reading stuff, and I went like, stop rewriting the beginning of you need to stop because you haven't finished. And so then I basically, I'm going to sound like the most horrendous writing coach in the world. But it really, really worked. I said, I'm not going to read any more of your chapters that are old chapters. I'm going to not read any of that until you work out a little plan, because she is that sort of person, ex-journo, really responded well to deadline and having a little plan. I want you to plot out the rest of your novel, and I'm not going to read anything else until you've done that. And then I want to see some new chapters.
Oh, I love it. No, that kind of no shit taken kind of whip
Yeah, but I
cracking is
mean,
exactly
yeah,
what
it's
works
but
for me.
and it's sort of like sounds a little harsh, but this was over a period of time, and and I really believed in this person too. Like I really went, this is great. You can really write. This is going to be a great book, but you are just wriggling. She was just wriggling, like she was wriggling around, using any manner of excuses to not finish. And I just went, okay, but you can keep doing that, but we've been working for months and you still haven't done the thing. You still haven't finished your novel, and you're just not going to stop. You're not going to finish it. And if you don't finish it, you're never going to deliver it. It's a problem. And she eventually got there, which was really, really great. But I really was going, wow, I don't know. I really don't know how else to say, what else to do. Because I mean, I was being so nice, prior when I was doing all the reading and encouragement and going, this is awesome, giving feedback on stuff. And then went, yeah, but I can see myself endlessly reading the really polished chapters. It's not finished. And it was causing her a lot of stress. So yeah, that's the thing.
Do you think
Anyway, so
it's
sorry, I've gone completely
no,
off
I think it's really
track.
interesting. Do you think it's like fear of success, fear of
Oh
failure,
yeah,
okay, yeah, yeah.
either or. Like either or. I mean, they're both pretty potent, actually. Um, she says, I may have had some experience. So, it's that. And I think it's the challenging thing is to work out what it is that you're most afraid of. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes it is success. Sometimes it's failure. Sometimes it's I'm going to be laughed at. That's really, really potent as a fear. But in terms of other forms of procrastination, endless researching, classic, and never really starting. But I've just got to research my novel, but somehow 6 months go by and I've got binders, of research, and I've never really started writing. Endless workshops, same thing. I'm going to keep going to those before I start my novel because I have to. Those are the kind of more insidious ones, I think. But I think the things like editing and researching are particularly insidious because they look and feel like productivity, and they look
Yeah.
like you're achieving stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do it. So I mean, I get it because I mean these things are part of writing, but at some point you just have to start.
Yeah, so much can be achieved by just taking one tiny step.
Yes,
I think there is
absolutely.
some kind of law of momentum, and the
Mm-hmm.
first step, whilst it's often the hardest, is also
Mm.
then like the easiest step to keep going because once you've taken one step, you can take another.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's like a ball in space, right? If a ball gets thrown in
Mm,
space, it will just keep going forever and ever and ever and ever. Um,
mm.
yeah, I love that. I hate editing, so I don't suffer that. I'm like, how can I get this over and done with as fast as humanly
Oh, that's
possible?
so funny. Well, I hate researching, so I never get stuck there ever because
Oh,
I just go, I would
interesting.
rather just go for it. And I love editing and rewriting.
Oh, see, no. So my favorite bit is the drafting, and that's often
Mm,
when I'm having the most fun. So I'm always like, how do I get to that bit again? And everything else just seems like fluff to me. Editing, I only give myself a week. I'm only allowed a week to edit a book, and then it's
brilliant,
done. And then whatever
brilliant.
happens after that, oh well. Like
There's
I'll
nothing,
obviously like
yeah.
it goes to an editor, and I'll do. But I tend to I probably shouldn't be saying this on air, but I select all and click control, like accept all. That's it. I don't care. I literally don't give a fuck at that point. I just want to get back to drafting. So yeah, I mean, my poor
That is
editor, she's
such,
amazing, but I'm like, I trust you implicitly. I just click,
yeah.
I like scan the page. And if obviously sometimes there's comments that you have to deal with, but like I'll scan the page and I'll like accept all the like the editorial commas and punctuation, all the rest of it. So I'm just
That
like,
is
I have
so
not
funny.
one care to give about this.
That is so, so funny. I
Oh, the secret lives of writers,
I
right?
tell you, I tell you, and it's that, and there's a lot of really good, rich stuff rolling around in all that secret life as well. But I think another form of procrastinating, which I think is really interesting, is um, anything to do with answering emails, anything that looks productive.
How
Like
dare
I'm just going
you?
to answer emails. I'm going to do tidying. I'm going to clean dogs. I don't know, whatever it is that you do.
How
It's
very
okay. This
dare
is why it's insidious, because that is productive.
I
You're doing some stuff that you go, oh, yeah, I've done that task. And you get the little immediate
dopamine
dopamine
hit.
hit.
Yeah.
And
I
so
I'm
compare
offended.
that to writing, which is hard and takes ages.
Yeah.
Oh, what would I rather do? Sit here and write a bit of my novel that I know I'm not going to finish for a year, or am I going to whip off and do something in my house that is going to make me go, oh yeah, I've tidied the wardrobe. It's that
Ah,
quite hard,
yeah.
quite
Emails
insidious.
are
Oh yeah,
my arch nemesis.
yeah, no,
Like,
me too, me
I
too.
hate them. I
Mm,
fucking hate my inbox. I would rather do anything other than emails. And yet, when it comes to writing a hard chapter, all of a sudden I find myself in my inbox,
yep, yep,
actually handling them. So, funny enough, I have a tipping point though with the inbox. So my inbox is my task list. So if there's an email in my inbox, it's because something needs to be done with it.
yep.
Because I'm very good at triaging and just I delete, delete, delete. Like if it doesn't need a response, you're not getting a response, I just delete it. Or I file it if it's something that needs to be
I'm so
kept.
impressed. I wish I
But
could do
oh, you say that. And yet there are currently 25 emails in my inbox, but that's fine. I start to twitch when it gets over 30, and I'm really twitching when it gets to 50. If I approach 80 to 100, I will have a tantrum at my wife because I just can't cope because I'm like, that's way too much admin for my brain to then be able to focus. Any point up to 50, I can focus on words. But when it gets over that, that's when I know I have to carve out a batch of time where I can blitz them. And actually, what I've started doing, I always used to covet like the experience that writers had who could go and write in Starbucks. I've got one of my friends and he goes and sits in Starbucks before work and I crave that ability, but I get so distracted by looking at people and seeing what other
it.
people are doing that I can't focus enough to write. But what I can do is go to Starbucks and blitz emails and admin, which is what I've started doing. And now I get that experience, but it's the right way for my process. So yeah, like I've been delighted at like just flipping like, okay, well, I can't do it for that.
Yeah,
Maybe I
yeah.
can do it for this. But anyway, that is like a random aside. But
Mm,
okay, so let's talk about neuroscience and
yes.
like the hows and whys of procrastination.
Okay, so as you probably worked out from my bio, not a neuroscientist. However, I would really recommend that any writer that wants to dig into this go out and have a look in the world. There's so much stuff out there about how plastic our brain is and how our brain works. And the real guts of it is we are operating on old software, but a lot of people know this. So we've got quite an old brain system living in a modern world. And so our big brain, big modern part of the brain is going to be fantastic for all the great human things, emotions, creation, problem solving, la 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 la. But when we are stressed or anxious, we tend to be run by the limbic system, which is the very old-fashioned, sometimes referred to as monkey brain or reptilian brain. And so, why is that of import for us as creatives? Couple of things. One is your brain can't tell the difference between perceived threat and real threat. This was a game changer for me discovering this. And when you think about, if you have a nightmare, you will wake up and your body reacts as if you're in that dream, right? Your body is sweating, your heart rate's up, all of that stuff. So your brain can't go, oh, actually, that's not real. So if you're running a narrative about the terrible things that might happen if you show your work to someone, or the terrible things about, oh, I'm not very good at writing, or I'm whatever negative story you're telling in your brain, um, it's going to cause discomfort. And if you're stressed, anxious, and fearful, your brain will go, cool, we don't want that because that's not good for our survival. And we'll come up with all sorts of stories about why you don't need to write and all sorts of stories about how, well, it's something that's going to be harmful to you, so let's avoid it. It's really tricksy and it's way more complex than that, obviously. The other thing about neuroscience that I discovered, which I thought was so, so great, which is the great part of it, is that, if you do something often, you get really good at it because your brain has got neural pathways in it that like a little groove in it. So whenever you learn to ride a bicycle, the more you do it, the more you do it, and you can do it. You've learned how to do it. Boil an egg, same thing. You've learned how to do these things. Your brain will go, oh, here's the shortcut to the thing I have to do. So this is awesome for surviving. It's awesome for learning tasks, but it's not awesome if you want to create something completely unique and different because it's quite hard, which is why random provocation exercises are so great because it forces you to think a thought that you've never had before. Other flip side to that is if you are someone that has got like a negative loop about yourself as a creative or a writer, you're going to get really good at thinking negative thoughts about yourself. So I think it's really worth looking into and going, look at what's going on in your brain, look at how it works on a fight or flight basic thing. When you think about your anxiety around writing, if you have anxiety around writing, or what you're afraid of, just observe it. Like just really observe it, because you know yourself when you're in your own body, you will go, oh, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling discomfort, or I'm feeling sort of slightly nervous or afraid of something. Just notice it, writers. That's what I'm saying to you. Notice that and go, what is that about? Take a step, take a breath. What is that about? And if it is around your writing practice or your writing journey, you're going to have to dig into that because it's going to get in your way. And
Um,
so carry on.
Oh no, so I was going to say a couple of things. The first thing I was
Mm,
going to say is this is why everybody talks about why mindset is so important because there's
yes,
a very
absolutely.
famous quote from Thoth
Yep.
who says mind is reality. And the
Mm,
reason that they say that is because our whatever we think in our mind becomes our reality. So
yeah.
if we have these negative loops,
Mm,
that is our reality. Um,
mm,
and so this is why things like strengths coaching,
mm,
and therapy are so important
mm.
because it's how we rewire our
That's right.
brains. And the
Yeah,
other thing
yeah.
that I was going to say is that I don't think, for whatever reason, I've ever quite recognized um, blocks. So Joanna Penn talks about, was it Joanna Penn? No, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was in a book that Joe recommended. Somebody who talks about finance talks about money
Mm,
blocks.
right.
And I have spent a long time trying to increase my income. And I reached a money block and I knew I wasn't going, like, I was this close, 100 quid,
Mm,
£106 between me and pushing over that barrier. And I knew 3 days before the end of the month, I wasn't going to hit it. And I didn't hit it. And I was £106 out. And I knew that that was going to happen because I felt a physical reaction to that
well,
figure. And
mm,
the minute I felt that reaction, I was like, for fuck's sake, I've just blocked myself. I'm not going to hit it. And I tried to take every action I possibly could to encourage more sales. I held back some really like controversial marketing, which I posted and it did really well. And I still knew it wasn't going to go over. And the only reason it didn't go over, I swear, like, and I know this is really woo woo, but I genuinely believe the only reason it didn't go over is because of me,
mm,
because I had, it was like almost a tangible like blocker, like it
mm,
was just a full stop. And I was like, oh, we're not getting over that this month. And I was
mm.
like, why did I do that? And I've got some
Yeah.
tricks though. I've got some tricks for
Oh,
that.
great. I've got tricks as well. I want to hear
So
your tricks.
okay, so one of the things that I do is so obviously the British pound sterling is very strong compared to a lot of other currencies.
Mhm.
So on some of the dashboards, you can change the currency to see the number in a different currency.
Yes,
So I
yes, yes.
often change it to dollars because then I'm seeing that I've earned more dollars than I have pounds, and that figure
Yep.
was way over in excess of that number. And then the other thing I do is I spend some time calculating and adding up what I made across different platforms, different monetary income streams. And then I have to sit with that number. And that number obviously is significantly higher than just this one platform. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, well, you've already earned that money and you've earned way, 20, 30, 40% more than that money because look at all of the other platforms. And then I'm like, when you sit with that, you're like, actually, I'm already doing this. I'm already doing it. So that little blocker that's not, it's not a block. We've already earned more than that. So, but
Yeah,
I don't,
brilliant.
yeah, it's really frustrating and I don't know what that is. I don't know why we have these stop points. Like, why would, like, it first, I'm going to ask my therapist, but I hate that I put this blocker and barrier in my way. And I fucking knew. Because the other thing that I know, and this is very woo-woo, and probably half the people are going to get off the podcast at this point, but I really do genuinely believe in manifestation. And anything that I have like made a hardcore decision on, like it has almost a tangibleness to that decision. There's a decision and then there's a decision. And when I make
Mm.
that kind of decision, it already is. Like at that point,
Yeah.
your brain has already decided that it is reality. And so
Mm.
doing the work is,
Yeah.
so yeah, like and that's how I knew that I'd fucked it, because I was like, fuck, we didn't decide that it was going to happen, and then it was too late. And it's a momentary thing, these little blockers that we can put in our way. But yeah, sorry. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Oh yeah, no, it's awesome. And I also I totally hear you. And I think it's my personal experience is one of my little tips is, and I've got quite good at it myself. And then every now and then I slip and then I have to go, no, you have to go back to doing that thing. And that is like catching a negative thought, like in my
Yeah.
mind, catching it by the tail and reframing it. And this is, if you've done therapy, lots of people know about reframing, but it is so powerful. It is just so powerful. And one of the things I did at some point in my writing career, so really not that long ago, like I would say within the last sort of 15 years ago, somewhere in there, maybe 10, I've got to break this habit of having negative thoughts about my writing. And a lot of that was bound up in I'm not where I want to be. I'm not being as productive as I wanted to be. Big baby. And I went, right, grab that little negative thought, and you just have to stop it and reframe it and go, no, no, that's not true. It's so simple. And it's so great. Honestly, mentally, I see my fist going like that, and I go, no, no, that's not true. This is the true thing. And things like, I mean, I've talked to so many writers about the terrible things they tell themselves. And so I speak to that from my own experience, but also from just talking to so many writers. And we say terrible things to ourselves. We say terrible things to our writer self that we would never say to friends or people that we cared for. And so, one of the things which will just anyone who knows me will just go, oh my God, that's insane. One of the things I used to tell myself was, oh, I'm just lazy. And that's apparently a really common thing. And so I grabbed that negative thought when I could feel it starting to form, and I would go, that's not true. You're actually really hardworking. You've actually done quite a lot. It's just not true. And then I stopped thinking it. It was really weird. But incredibly, I think I love that. And I think it's really useful. So whatever, and also, when we were talking about neuroscience, so when you think about negative thoughts and how anxiety manifests in you because you're thinking about something. I'm projecting ahead about the terrible thing that's going to happen, which lots of people do. Seems to be a modern society thing. I'm going to imagine the worst. It stresses you out, and it makes your body go, oh, we're under threat.
Mm.
So, and it makes your brain go, great, limbic system needs to take charge because that's in charge of running away, carrying on breathing, all of the basics. This is going to protect you and save you, but you're not actually under threat. It's just your own shenanigans in your brain. Like
The
you're really not under
greatest,
threat.
100%, the greatest skill we can ever learn is to control our own mind.
It's really true. And if you let those negative thoughts run you know, un, unbidden through your brain, those little neural pathways are just going to get deeper. You're going to get really, really good at negative thinking. I'm sure people have met someone at some point in their lives and you've gone, wow, they're like phenomenally negative.
Mm.
And and they're not even aware that they are just really, really good at thinking negatively and imagining the worst. But the bad thing about thinking of the worst case scenario is how your body and brain responds to that. Like you can, when you start thinking about, oh, if I do this thing, people are going to laugh or I'm going to fail. If I publish I mean, this is a classic. If I publish my novel, people I know will laugh at me. Awful, because they actually won't. Well, you know what I like to say to my people I work with is I go, well, there might be someone that does, but they probably won't do it to your face. And most people won't. Most people will be really impressed. That's the reality. And so you thinking, if I finish my novel and put it out there and I publish my novel, I'm already jumping ahead years ahead, and it gets a terrible review. So I'm kind of anxious, and I'm not really sitting down and going, I'm in a lovely, free, creative zone. I'm anxious, worrying about something that hasn't even happened.
I love one-star reviews. I use one-star reviews in marketing. Only the really good ones though, right? So it's got to be
Yeah,
somebody who's like really viciously against like
brilliant.
something that is very pertinent to your genre. So for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
I literally used a one-star review in marketing yesterday. This was one of the things that I was holding back to use to try and hit the goal at the end of the month.
Mm.
And somebody left me a review that said basically P asterix RN, basically porn. And I was like, this is the best review I've ever had. It was one
It
star. I was
really is
like,
spectacular.
because I write smut, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, people who read smut are going to go feral over this. So of course I posted it everywhere and people went feral. And I got
Oh
so
my God,
many
that's
reviews. I got so many
fantastic.
purchases yesterday because of it. I was literally like, you know what? Like this is if life gives you lemons, okay? This is what you
I
do with
love
them.
that story so much. I can't tell you how much I love that story. I think you got to get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
You got
I
to
know.
get that on a t-shirt.
I literally, I sent it to somebody yesterday because I was like, I saw another thing that said, oh, hang on, I can tell you. I think it was roses are red, pages are torn. Oh, hang on a second. Wait, let me get it. So it's like a little roses are red, pages are torn. The book I'm reading is practically porn. And I was like, oh
Fabulous.
my God. So it's a little like a book logo.
Oh
And
yeah,
I was like,
fantastic.
can you redesign this and have
Yes.
it so it says the book I'm writing is practically porn? And then I want on the back my one-star review printed. I definitely want that as a t-shirt. I'm
Yeah.
gonna wear it at like
Yep.
book events because this is the
That
best review ever.
absolutely has to happen. It
Yeah.
absolutely has to happen. It's such a great idea. I know. I think I mean I because my book is just relatively new, so I've had really great reviews. But I'm kind of going at some point there'll be a horrible review, and I've already thought ahead and gone, no, I'm putting that on postcards. Like, I'm
Yeah, I
totally going
mean,
to
don't
use
get
it.
me wrong.
Brilliant.
There are sometimes reviews that really hurt, and actually,
Of
I try
course, of
not to
course.
look at them. But I often send my assistant in to look at the reviews, and I'm like, if you find anything that's like gold, please pull it out. And actually, one of my friends found this one, and I was like, oh my God! So I sent my assistant in to screenshot it, and I was like, please pull that out and let's use it everywhere. But yeah, I can't believe we are at the end of this podcast. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour easily, all about this.
Oh, well, let's
Um,
do it. Let's do it another
yeah,
time. That would be
but
great.
this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Right. So, once upon a time, dear reader, I had really wanted to write a play for a very long time. And I had not done it, not done it, not done it. And then I wrote a play with a friend of mine. We really loved it. We thought it almost got produced a couple of times, which is just like heartbreaking. When it's your first, it was kind of heartbreaking. We're going, oh, boo-hoo. And at some point, I pulled it out, like, yeah, about maybe 5 years later, and pulled it out and went, this is really good. So you know what? I'm going to produce it myself. I I know nothing about producing theatre, so I said to a bunch of folks who did know more about theatre, so I've got no funding, and I'm going to produce this, and I've got a really good chum who wants to come on and direct it, and he's awesome. So I mean, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to raise the money. And honestly, it was like an Amish bun raising. I went, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I'm going to get a community. We're going to do it. And so many people of a really, really, really experienced theatre practitioners went, you are mad, don't do it. That is terrible. And then a really good friend of mine said to me, in fact, said to me, for the love of God, this is when I was in like drowning in this, trying to get sponsorship for it. For the love of God, stop now before it's too late. And I was like, I'm not invading Poland. It's like, I'm putting on a play. Like it's not too late. And I went, for me, that was like my rebel story because I just did it
I
and
love
it
that.
went really, really well. And it was fearful, and I was fearful, and it made no sense.
But I bet it
But I
brought you
did it
joy.
anyway, and it's very public. It's very public. So when I was promoting it and getting publicity for it, there was my fat face right there. I mean, it's very public. And I went, wow, if this fails, this is really going to smart. But it didn't. And I think that was I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. I just went, no, all these people that know more than me are telling me how crazy I am. Just did it. Just really wanted to do it and just did it.
Yeah, I love that. That's, I absolutely love that because one, it brings us joy when we do these things. I always think
Yes.
rebellion is about joy seeking,
Yeah.
or correcting something that feels wrong for you.
Yeah.
But also I tend to find that when we do throw ourselves headfirst and fully focus into that one thing and say, fuck it to what everybody else has told you, we tend to succeed. Somebody very well known in the industry told me not to do the genre that I'm doing because it wouldn't make any money. And now I'm laughing.
I know it's
Look at
kind
me
of
now,
it's
bitches.
yeah, it's really it's so true. I don't know. I loved what it did for my confidence
Yeah,
and what I learned from doing it. And it was not easy. I've got to say it was really tough. It was hard work and I made really not a lot of money because I lost a sponsor. I had to ultimately put a chunk of my own money in it, which I got back. But it was hard work, but boy, I was never happier. I loved it. And I came away from that going, I've learned something about myself. It was just invaluable.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your books, and anything else you'd like to add.
Sure. So I have a website that I'm not particularly in love with, but hey, go visit it anyway, which is kathryn-burnett.com. So it's easy to find. And my book, Productive Writer Guidebook, is found on Amazon, Smashwords, and also you'll find a hard copy on Gumroad if you're in New Zealand and Australia. You can buy a hard copy there, and because I'm just out, so I have still organising my Northern Hemisphere hard copy situ. But that is en route. And if you are by any chance in New Zealand, I have a play coming on mid-June at the Herald Theatre in Auckland. So come on down.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to the episode, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Kathryn Burnett, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. That's it for this week. Join me next week when it's a surprise. It'll either be me or it will be somebody else that I'm interviewing, and I will be next week. So join me next week for more shenanigans. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.